Hey guys. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us here on campus and to those who are joining us online. My name is Peter Soutullo. I'm a course director here in the Digital Arts and Design program at Full Sail University. I'm hosting this session titled From File to Full Bleed, Designing for Physical Media. Let's put our hands together and help me welcome our panelists. We have Jeff Matz, owner of Lure Design, Dina Rodriguez, hand letter artist and 2010 DAD graduate, yay. Nick Sambrato, founder of Mama Sauce and VP of Fiction TV. All right, so now that we have the introductions underway, let's just give a little bit of background on who you are and what you do in this industry.
Well, we have a Lure Designs, graphic design studio, dealing in print, some web. We opened in '98. I'm a graduate of Grayling School of Art and Design a few years ago. That's about it.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Dina. I'm a hand lettering artist, so I make a living by drawing letters every day. I work on advertisements, posters. I also sell a bunch of different print mediums, shirts, screen printed, so I'm super excited to hang out with Mama Sauce over here. Just draw letters every day and blog about it and teach other people how to make a profit from their passion, like me.
Cool. Hey, I'm Nick Sambrato. I'm the founder of Mama Sauce. We're a print shop right here in Orlando, actually. We do only spot color printing, so that basically means no full color images. We work with antiquated old presses like letterpress, silkscreen, and hot foil, and we are fortunate enough to print for some of the best designers and agencies and brands in the world, and we're really stoked to be here at Full Sail, and we get to do a lot of events just all over the place, and it's really special to see something happening in our hometown, and that's one of the things we really try to do is bolster the brand of Orlando and help take control and ownership of that message from a creative standpoint, because there's a lot of great creative coming out of here, so thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for being here, guys. So the title of this session is From File to Full Bleed, Designing for Physical Media. What is, if you could briefly talk about your process of going from digital to the physical, or, right? Or going from design to actual physical piece. Whoever, jump in. It's
Okay. So
whoever wants to
I
go.
love to talk. Let's do this. So I think testing is really important. Like things that look on a computer screen doesn't always translate to print. There's a difference between there's light coming through the screen that actually adds a pigment of white and things will actually look brighter versus print. So it's always something to keep in mind. So always test print, even if you have just run-of-the-mill printer, and make sure it looks good, small sizes, big sizes, and make sure you have your correct print-ready procedures. So that way, when I do want to give a file to Mama Sauce, we can make it idiot-proof to make sure that it looks as good as it's supposed to.
Yeah, that's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Nick?
How much time you got? So, we find that the way that the world is going, increasingly more digital in our experience, is a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it also brings with it an education and a contextual experience that really doesn't include the tactile and handmade printing, quite as much as it used to. So we sit out as not an anomaly, but just something that is different. And we found fortunate for us that it's not just different, it's set apart and sought after. And so the path from digital to us really should be looked at. When I say us, I mean spot color printing. There's other spot color printing shops that are all wonderful wherever you go. But we find that path really does need to be taken seriously, and we romanticize it. There is something different about taking a design from a reactive, web environment or an interactive experience to handmade printing. So there are a lot of thoughts, like you mentioned, the way screens look, and that's one thought you think about in a digital space, like, well, how's it going to react in different breakpoints and things like that. But when you think about print, you have to think, well, from ground up, you want to start with the substrate. What am I going to be printing on? What color is the paper? You want to start there with the actual materials. What's the process I want to be to do with this? And understanding the difference in processes, full color, and all the tree underneath full color, be it offset digital display or anything else, or spot color and all the things underneath that. What will those processes bear? What are their limitations? How far do I want to push them? What is that process going to do to bring my design to life? And so, without getting too instructional on how to do it, just know that when you go to print from digital, it is a different world of execution. So always start and think, what process am I designing for? And what are the substrates, and then what are the materials limitations and capabilities? And really do your research on it. Be a nerd about everything you do, because honestly, it's our time. This is the time for nerds, This is where we're in the information age. If you want to learn how to bridge that gap, it goes way beyond this panel. There's so much information out there. Mamas-softs.com. We have a whole learning database, right? Where you can dig in and get real nerdy on it. If you do that, before you even go out and talk to someone like this, you're going to be so much more prepared. And even better, if you get nerdy about how to make your own printing rigs and start doing that yourself, that's a wonderful thing too, because it becomes an Ouroboros. Your physical experience will start informing your design, and your design will start informing the physical experience, and it'll become something really beautiful. So I'd say get nerdy with it and learn.
Yeah, pretty much what Nick said about the whole, how to approach the spot color thing. We do screen printing at Lure Design, but so we do the same sort of thing in terms of trying to approach what kind of paper we're going to use, mixing our own inks and all that. Preparing files for printing on a digital press in the 4-color, world is a totally different thing. It's sort of hard to figure out where to exactly start. Generally speaking, something that maybe a lot of designers don't necessarily think about, and it's not really about the printing process, but be sure your work is proofread. It happens an awful lot that we get so bogged down in the idea and the color and the composition and battling client changes and this and that, and a job will get printed with a mistake in it, and you can't go back if it's in print. Easy to fix it if it's on the web, but
Print's pretty finite to
yeah,
a
it
degree.
is. And I heard someone recently talking about preparing files for color printing, and they like to actually supply RGB files to their printer. Their printer's printing in CMYK. I've always been converting my files to CMYK, so I have an idea of what's going to kind of happen when you make the conversion. Blues kind of flatten out, greens kind of flatten out. Same thing with oranges. His intent is to show the printer ultimately what he really would like it to look like. So it puts some of the burden back on the printer. It's going to convert this thing to 4-color to make it look as much like what he's intending than anything. I haven't attempted that, but I thought it was an interesting approach.
If I can just follow that up.
Sure.
I understand that intent, right? Like, okay, RGB is going to read on a screen a certain way, but we also, like I said, understand each process. Actually, some printers do prefer RGB, certain roll printers and solvent-based printers, things like that. They actually prefer that. But if you're going to go to offset or digital that wants a CMYK file, if you're delivering RGB with the intention of, saying, printer, this is what I want it to look like. Well, honestly, let's blow that out of the water for a second. You open up your laptop, you open up your iPhone, you open up your iPad, you open up your identical laptop, they're going to look different on every single screen, right? Whereas in our shop, we have a calibrated screen that we know is calibrated to our proofing press, so we can see it back and forth, but you don't. And that's one of the most beautiful things. And even if you did, they're not calibrated to our screen. Every screen is going to look different, right? So that's one of the beautiful things that Spot Color solved a long time ago with a amazing brand called Pantone, right? And other control systems, right? So if you're in the spot color world, we actually have a unified theory, one ring to rule them all, and that is your Pantone on-coded solid swatch book, right? And so when you deal with us, or Jeff, or anyone else, we are all speaking the same language. Why? Because we have this book that's printed meticulously to look like every other one that was in existence and distributed. And you should be updating those every single year if you take your colors seriously. If you don't have this year's Pantone Plus color-coded book, and you are in Wyoming hiring us to print for you, and you want that color to be dead on accurate, right? And you got 2 years old of a book, or you sent me a file and said, match this. We just can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But so, there's these industry standards you have to learn because and then adopt them. And they're not, they're professional tools, they're not inexpensive. It costs money every year to keep your Pantone books up to date. But if you take spot color printing seriously, you should have that tool, and you should be maintaining that tool, and you should subscribe to the content that world creates, like Pantone. Do a great job updating and updating the world about what's going on.
The other interesting thing about the spot color printing is when you're designing for print for just offset printing, you don't think much about separations because that all sort of happens at the print shop when they run it through their system. When we're preparing files for screen printing, we have to manually separate all of our files, and it's just not something that most designers even think about because you're not doing it very often. We have to build traps and spreads and shrinks and all that into our files. We also have to plan for how inks are going to print, whether they're transparent or opaque, or what degree of transparency, because they're all a little bit transparent in the spot color world. So it's a totally different approach to creating a final file, doing spot color versus full color.
And I don't think we're done answering your question yet, Peter, so I want to jump back into this again.
That's fine.
We're talking, I referenced romanticizing that track before, and that's when you talk to us, that's what we're going to do. But maybe the first question you need to ask yourself, right? This is something I ask of everybody we deal with. What are your goals? What's your budget? What's your timeline, right? And then what's the best way to really get, what's your best path to victory? You might have ambitions, that are, just to hit that color with that emboss and this paper that people will see from across the room and just float to because they want to touch that print, right? But your timeline and your budget may not accommodate. So knowing out from the front, like what you can do, will know, outlay and put in front of you what the options are for you. And this, while we romanticize our spot color processes, there are things, sometimes the job just needs to get done. Sometimes you just need to, it's just like, we're just getting something on a window in a door and say, this is where you go. And I would never demonize, digital printing and offset. Everything has its place. So, don't always think that I have to be designing to create the best print. What am I trying to accomplish? And does spot color fit that? Does handmade process fit that? And I'll just go a step higher, just so that in case there's there might be maybe one person doesn't know what spot color is. You guys are highly educated. But spot color is literally mixing every single ink to match like a bucket of paint and printing that one color at a time, one screen at a time. Whereas CMYK, the thing we reference, is the million little dots, cyan, yellow, magenta, and key black, that makes up that picture that looks like a photograph.
So, what keeps you doing this more handmade stuff? We're in this digital realm now, and maybe some of your designs start digital, but as you all said, doing screen printing, hand lettering, and kind of the letterpress and the more old school hand done stuff. What keeps you doing that now? We see the digital world going on and on and on.
I think for me, it's a little sort of a bit of a throwback kind of thing. I started out, making art as a kid with my hands, and when I went to art school, we pretty much did, design and art with our hands. Back in the days, we used, waxers and
blue pencils and all that stuff.
So switching to the computer and working with the computer is amazing. There's so much control and all this, but after sitting in front of the computer and clicking a mouse and pushing stuff around, it's nice to get up and kind of just do something with your hands and do something tactile. And I think the whole sort of maker movement that's been going on the last few years, there's so many millennials sort of having sort of get forced into being entrepreneurs, has sort of pushed, I think, more of that to happen. So I really just kind of like, just like I said, just getting away from the computer and making something with my hands.
Yeah, like personally, I'm a hand lettering artist, so I always start pretty traditional, and I totally agree with you. I think I have more control over my physical hands than I would on a mouse any day, although a Wacom tablet comes in handy.
Yeah.
I think we're currently experiencing just this trend of like clean, modern, sleek, Helvetica new, just plastered across everything. And that's why I love traditionally hand lettering, just to be able to build the letters from scratch, make them look authentic. Back in the day, you see those ghost signs, because that was the only way to make a sign was to paint it physically on a storefront. They're still as beautiful as they are today as they were the day they were painted. And that's what made me obsessed with hand lettering, and even more so to transform my sketch and then put it into Photoshop and then clean it, and then kind of what I like is the perfect match of perfection with imperfect, and print it out so that way, like you said, it's tangible. You're like, it's like the ring, and you're like, come towards me, and you're just attracted to it. And it really makes a difference of like whether or not I'm going to have that hand lettered poster that Letter Shop made on my wall for a month or for the next 7 years, or something that even gets passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, let's we'll keep slipping in some Lord of the Ring references.
Yeah. I was like, can we make that a theme?
Yeah,
I'm into it.
For me, it is a philosophical thing. I like to ask myself, like, what are you trying to keep alive, in your life, in the universe, in this world, and for me, there's just something about these processes that I particularly want to keep alive, and that's not to say that the things that are not this process, the handmade, are, demonized or bad. This just happens to be the thing that I love, and I do happen to love the imperfection. I do have these things aesthetically that speak to me, and so it's like, yes, it calls to you, and like this is what I want to keep alive. And there's something about that thought, these antiquated handmade things that's, it's not stuck in time, but it moves slower. New like Wacom tablets, they come around and you adopt them, but it's not this, the other side, which is like progress until progression, forces us to, progress where we get saved by our progress. Like this whole technology thing is just ramping forward. Like that's cool, but like I don't want to move at that speed. Like I like, I like the tortoise and the tortoise and hare, I like the tortoise approach. And these things allow you to kind of do that and choose that, even though that world's moving faster around you, and sometimes you have to jump into that fast lane. This is a good slow escape, and that also, it comes with a whole other community, of these people would like to make things. I'm a little hesitant to say like maker and handmade, all that artisan, like stuff. It's just, it's just people who make things, and that's a cool community that fits really well with the other community that's making digital things. We all make things. It's just, what's your ethos, what are you drawn to? And it just so happens, this stuff to me, I really love the fact that the story it tells is so packed with all kinds of narratives, right? You have the handmade letter that somebody toiled over, right? That 15 people in our shops, it went through every one of their hands, right? And then it came from a paper mill that's 140 years old, owned by the same family, that's been hydropowered since the 20s, and all recycled paper, printed on a press that's from the turn of the century that hadn't changed since the 1800s in its design. Before that hadn't changed for like 300 years. It's a mature process, and all that gets put into this one piece that maybe is just the letter, on a poster that sits across the room that draws you to it, because that entire narrative is packed into it, and I think it shows. And next thing you know, you're like,
I was waiting for it.
So now that you do see this kind of emergence of hand done and maker type stuff, do you see more clients asking for that type of stuff, or more influx of people wanting the more hand done type of product?
I mean, for me personally, I'm happy to say that I'm a full-time hand lettering artist as of about 5 months ago.
That's great.
And I'm starting to get a lot of agencies contacting me, and they actually tell me, can you make it even more imperfect? Can you make it look even more hand-drawn? Can you use a Sharpie
That's awesome.
instead of a micron pen so it has more bleed? So it actually looks like my kid drew this in their composition notebook in middle
Sounds
school.
like they know too much about what you're doing.
Well, I have a lot of information on my website, so they come educated. Thank God for WordPress. But yeah, so I think it's just going to get more and more handmade, and people are just going to want traditional because it's what stand out. Like right now, we're bombarded by like ads and billboards, and everything is just so clean and perfect. And then the handmade, like again, the ghost signage reference it captures you. It's handmade for that specific purpose, whereas digital, it's just too easy to be like, oh, this is a banner ad, this is this. Whereas like hand lettering or anything that's just custom made is just made for that one beautiful product.
Nice.
I think we have to be careful about letting that wave you're talking, like, is there more demand? It feels like it, it starts to look like it when major corporations' websites start to shift over and look like, they're hiring, like shifting that, like all of a sudden the man's got it in their hands, right? I think we have to be careful though when the world starts to ask of us, like go deeper, like starts to tell, like can you do this more, like be more you, but not in a way where it's encouraging you to say be free to do what you want to do as a creative, but to say this is the thing we're trying to exploit. Do more of that. We have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
I think when we think about is it getting more popular, and I think sustainability in this will come from people saying like let me be me and do my thing more.
Yeah, I think an example I saw of that a while back was like on the side of a new Burger King. They had what looked on the building would look like kind of a chalkboard with this three-dimensional chalk-like lettering. It's like, it's like kind of taken. I mean, the chalk lettering thing's been really popular, but once it starts to get into that realm, like they're trying to pull that stuff, and that's no longer handmade. They're just trying to kind of ride that wave a little bit, and that becomes disingenuous.
It's just, it's another evolutionary path.
Yeah.
That beetle got a little bigger. It's a different beetle now. Like that's cool. Do your thing, but I'm gonna go be a different one. Like it's just evolution. But like that's what I'm saying. You have a decision to make when it comes at you. Like, what do you want to keep alive in this?
I think it all comes down to just being authentic. Like a lot now, like with the trend of handmade, like now we're seeing an influx of hand lettered fonts. And then you're seeing that in for like logos and advertisements. And I'm sure Burger King probably used the font. I doubt they hired someone like me to come in there and make it special. And then again, like in Portland, for example, there's exposed brick everywhere. Everywhere has chalkboard signage. Everything's hipster. We're at the point where like hipster just isn't even cool anymore. And then it gets overdone.
Reclaimed wood and Edison bulbs.
Yeah, dude, I would show you so many pictures. It's just every restaurant just starts to look the same after a while. And then, once the man takes over, it's no longer cool anymore. You're the man of a job.
And hey, that's cool. That's just its own thing. And you guys gotta look at it and say, what am I gonna do? It's totally cool you can go down that path. You know what I mean? But it's just like, just be cognizant and aware. When things start to become more popular, you have more decisions to make.
When we have a pretty broad mix of clients that come to us for very traditional stuff, websites, traditional printing, advertising, brochures, whatever, and we have some clients who come to us for handmade stuff, and sometimes clients will come to us and want us to design something that has the feel of what our handmade work looks like, but it may not be printed the same way. It may not be printed, screen printed, and all that. And that's fine with me. If they're coming to us for a look that we produce, I'm happy about that. Even if it's not printed, if it's not screen printed.
Right.
They may need to print, a million pieces.
Commercial print, yeah.
And there's like from a business perspective, there's not a margin difference between production and creative. Like manufacturing and production is not necessarily a money maker unless it's in volume, highly efficient, and then you can get the right price point going. So a lot of times that can be a blessing if you are creative with production attached, like Laura is. Creative only actually can be a much cleaner cut product, and as long as you're able to just connect and be like, oh, I don't have to. It doesn't have to be this thing that's always handmade, like that actually I'm sure you vouch for this, like that's a usually more profitable endeavor with less headache and strain.
Yeah.
Manufacturing is a beast, and printing is manufacturing. It is, and it's a very costly business to run any kind of manufacturing.
Especially when you have those errors that you need to proofread.
Those can be pretty costly. Proofread.
What advice would you have to young designers maybe wanting to explore more of the hand-done stuff or get started in it? Kind of, maybe start digitally or step away from it, or, how could they get their their feet wet in the more of the hand done.
Well, I think the
World.
biggest mistake is people get too far down the rabbit hole of inspiration mode. Like they spend so much time liking and sharing and on Instagram and on Pinterest, especially, I'm gonna talk about lettering more. Like I get all these inquiries every month for people for my newsletter asking me, how do I start? How do I start? It's like, you just pick up a pencil and you start.
You just start.
Like, don't be afraid to try something, even if it's, don't commit yourself to like a 365-day project where you're doing something every day, but maybe just 10 minutes. Like, not every person who's a beginner designer is a student and is young. Sometimes they're 40s, 50s, they have kids, they have responsibilities. It's just put aside, give yourself that 10 minutes of Zen time, start, and just give yourself permission, and you'll be surprised how long you sit there and will draw or start whatever you want to learn.
Yeah, the content monkey sure is fun to watch dance, you know, like, but doing is so much better. But it's there's just something about like it's so easy to get caught up in the content experience and the inspiration experience. It's so easy and it's important. But like I know, you know, like if I use the word like demand, don't think I'm deep. Like again, I think everything has a place in this world. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And case in point, there's a brand out there that has, I think, the most brilliant. Just do it is so right. Just do it. Like to your point, just do it and just keep doing it and keep doing it, and it'll happen or it won't. I have a friend of mine who's a buddy that he started out on this thing where that it's again it's part of the content thing where it's like daily lettering, and everyone joins in. You have a hashtag to do it, and this guy kept on it. And I have friends of mine who I respect so much that are great illustrators, great typographers, who are like several of them completely unrelated. Like, man, that dude so and so, like when he was first starting, man, like he's blown up since like he wasn't very good.
Are you talking about Scott Barasak?
I don't know who I'm talking about
Okay.
right now.
I was just wondering.
Scott's amazing too, but Scott's a great example. He's at Bring Fire. He's a great example. He was a student that just kept doing, right? And I'm talking about somebody else, but I'm just trying not to name names, but Scott's another great thing, it's easier to watch them involved in, oh man, it sure would be cool to be them, like, oh no, you could be doing that. You don't have to put it on public display, that's cool, you could just do it, like discipline. All we have in this world is decisions. Decisions will create discipline. Discipline will become something you need, something you love, something you covet, and become your precious, and it will become you. It really will.
I think another way to sort of, in terms of getting your feet wet or whatever, is find, and there's plenty of videos online. If you want to get into printing somehow, find some workshops, do an internship. We do workshops. I know that Mama Sauce does a lot of workshops, and we've had a lot of interns come through our shop who, either a workshop or an intern may come in and print for a little while, and they get kind of hooked, and they end up setting up their own, setups at home, and they just start doing it, and they just start making stuff. So I think really just find a way to get your hands dirty, and get in there and actually try it.
And I think that's important to dive in and kind of just
And I think that a lot of people
do it.
like us who are doing this are happy to share,
Yeah.
and come in studio and check it out.
Yeah, I think, and to that point, it's hard to determine what's appropriate, to ask somebody if it's their business, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? And like you said, like we're happy to share, certainly to a certain extent. I think people are surprised. I'm like, no, you should build your own DIY screen printing press because all we do is for hire printing that. But to be honest, like the ideal client knows how to design for what we do, right? And ideally, they know how to print and how printing to a certain extent. And my hope and wish and ambition and desire is that you start printing your own greeting cards, and then eventually, Jeff, more paper goods gets out of control. And we're not built to be at scale and do volume. And I hope you get an order from Anthropology because guess what? Are you going to print 10,000?
No, we are not.
No, you're not. So that's why I'm like, okay, please, more Jeffs in the world are great for me. And then leading up to Jeffs, where it's like, print, just do, just make. And it's good. Rising tide raises all ships.
I'm gonna highlight that. I love it. Rising
I'll print it.
I like it. Sweet. Have it here, guys.
Just a simple question. How long have you been doing this?
in the game.
Like in the design game?
Doing it professionally.
Okay.
'Cause, I mean, we've all probably
For me,
been
it's
drawing and doing
84.
things.
84.
I'm like the new kid on the block, I feel like, on this panel. I mean, I graduated from...
I'm definitely the old kid on the block.
I mean, I graduated from
I
Full
don't
Sail
think
in
you're a kid
2010,
on
so...
the block.
Come on, let him have his kid, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not a kid either. It's cool. We opened our doors on October 15th, 2007 was our first day. But I've been noodling around with screen printing for a few years before that. Screen printing starts in the garage. No getting around it. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Printing starts in the garage. It's so well suited for it. You know, it's so for a couple $100, and that's a stretch, in college especially. But for a couple $100, man, you could be making things. You know, like get the tools and make a press to make things. You know, you don't need to have a $25,000 screen print press.
Yeah.
You can for $200 you can build something and do something great. And that's where we started, and that's where I started. And so yeah, I've been at this for printing wise for at least a decade.
What about that feeling when you actually do that and you get your first physical piece that you see? What's that feeling like? When you see it printed and you're like, holy cow.
Well,
I just
got the very first screen I burned in my office to this day, sitting up there.
Still.
I got the first print I ever pulled, sitting, you know, like in my private reserve stock of posters that I printed. It's amazing. It's amazing when you go out in the world. Have you seen your products out in places?
It's crazy. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Like, I think the first thing I ever got majorly printed is I was lucky enough to land an internship with ESPN or World of Sports here on Disney property, and I had this huge billboard like right off the highway,
Yeah.
and I even like videotaped my reaction, and I just couldn't. I was like, I made that. Like, I remember just like painstakingly all the revisions and everything, and it just made this beautiful product that I hope made ESPN or World of Sports lots and lots of
Well,
money.
you know, for years I've been making stuff or, you know, designing things for clients, getting things printed and going on press checks and all that stuff literally for years.
Just yesterday I saw your work on an Instagram post that like you're like 3 clicks deep.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, and it was just a lifestyle picture. And there was one of your posters
In the background.
I see your work everywhere,
But
everywhere. And it's special for me to see your work
Yeah.
in places.
But it's one of those, like I was, you know, making stuff commercially, you know, doing stuff for clients, but the day that we actually sort of borrowed someone else's screen printing setup and we made our own, my own first print, that was more exciting to me than having anything, you know, printed on an offset press or seeing a TV commercial we worked on or a billboard. It was crazy. It's just like this, and it was just a poster for a local, you know, show Wilco was doing locally. It's like, I made this thing. Not only did I design it, but we actually mixed the ink and we pulled it. That was awesome. There's something really satisfying about that.
It makes it
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, that tangible thing is pretty great.
I'm not getting a little clumsy here because like I'm thinking about you're like what's it like to see your work, and I've had people in New York hand me a business card and I'm like, oh wow, I printed that, you know. But like I'm literally thinking about times that like I was in someone's home that was a friend of a friend in South Carolina, and there was one of your posters on the wall.
Yeah.
All over Instagram,
That's so cool.
like you know, like you see your work in the background and stuff. It's just I just want to blow them up for a second. So when you say when did we start? You know, about like Jeff's been in the game and like representing and doing great stuff for Orlando for a long time, and a body of work when you just keep working and doing, making, creating, it compounds. That's building an IP. That's a legacy, and that's where I think you're at. You've just got work everywhere, and it's special for me to see it being done at the same time.
You're like my dream. Like it's starting to happen for me, and it freaks me out a little bit. Like you see a post on Instagram, like, oh, there's my Maker's Gonna Make poster in the background, or
Yeah.
oh, hey, they downloaded that free wallpaper, and then just getting tagged and stuff. It's just like, oh, people like me. They really like me.
Well, it's exciting for us. We've had a couple of posters used in some TV shows. I think, you know, it's in the background. No one sees it. No one cares. But we see it. It's like, holy shit! Did you see that? That's our poster, man. It's on TV.
That's
made it.
that's a feeling you can hardly describe.
Yeah,
You know,
and
that
then the
if you
fact
haven't
that-
been there.
Yeah, we actually hand printed it. It wasn't like it was some, you know, brochure for some client that, I don't know, that would have been kind of different. But this thing that, even the designs that we do for bands or our card line, those designs are much more personal. You know?
There's
So-
more love, more.
Yeah, and we print them ourselves, or our interns will print them with us. Yeah, it's a real deep satisfaction in that.
I think that's part of the thing that kind of promotes the hand done stuff is the feeling that you get from making the hand done stuff. Kind of in turn, the consumer, the person buying it or getting it.
Yep,
Well, I tell
they
you,
connect to that too.
Yeah.
we do a lot of business out in Silicon Valley, and so I'm out there a couple times a year, and there's a culture out there amongst designers and people I know that work out there. It's actually pretty transient. People move a lot from company to company, and there's this big culture war to attract people, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go there. They've got a 5-star chef, I'm gonna go here. But like, one of I think the biggest things is it's not so much the culture that people move. Especially last time most of my friends I talked to, like, and I hadn't heard this phrase. They're like, oh man, I just want to work on something that ships. All these designers I know out there, and like there's these labs and this stuff that's constantly being made in big tech companies that never ships, that never sees the light of day. Someone might spend a year making something and it doesn't happen, and that to a creative is devastating. And it may be like the brand of why they move might be a chef of it, but really people are like, I just want to be somewhere where my work's gonna.
And if you make your own poster, you can ship it.
Yeah, your work will ship.
Yep.
Well, also, I think, especially for you guys, there's that control.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not, like you said, you don't have, the giant corporation going, yeah, we're not going to do that or whatever. How is that? How do you feel about that? That personal control you have
Well, it was
over
another
your work.
driving force or another factor in us sort of getting into making screen printed posters and note cards and so forth. Over the years, working in ad agencies and working for corporations, you lose some creative control. There's just it just happens. Client changes come in, budget constraints, time constraints, so you lose some control. We back in the day would often do a lot of pro bono work just to have creative freedom. Find a client that needs something, who's a nonprofit or somebody, so you have total creative freedom. This was sort of a shift. Instead of creating something for someone else with total creative freedom, we're making our own product. We're making our own design, and that was sort of a big shift. So that's part of the reason we kind of got into it, is to have that freedom, so that some of the work we do is controlled by the clients and their timelines and budgets. This stuff, usually the budgets are really small because we're doing it ourselves, but we have total freedom to make whatever we want to make.
Yeah, I think it's really important to always have a personal project on the side.
Yeah.
Just in case you have, a client from hell situation, you can just this is mine. I put my name on it, I can do whatever I want. But to kind of speak to the fact that when you have a client that doesn't necessarily agree with what you want to do, it really all comes down to the goals of the project. Is it going to hit that target demographic? If you want it to be XYZ, this is why it needs to be that. And to be able to defend your design decisions instead of just doing things based on trend or personal preference, and actually be able to, I chose blue because of X, Y, and Z. I chose this composition because it draws your eye here, versus the client who may or may not be like, well, my favorite color is green, so it needs to be green. It's no offense, client, I don't really care what you think, I care what your audience thinks. And that's really the point of view I think you have to take when you do any kind of client work. But again, personal projects are bomb, and I think everyone should always be working on a little something on the side to just get that ooze, that passion out somewhere.
For us, we're a commercial print shop, so at a certain point we have to, do what the client wants, right? But how we really try to create a path to victory for creative fulfillment is that we are. What Errol Morris defined Errol Morris is one of my favorite documentary filmmakers. He defined it as, and I'll paraphrase. It's actually I'll just screw a couple words. He's define an obscure set of rules and stick to them ardently. That is art, right? And for us, that's in our history, we started out pretty wide in chasing whatever, full color, T-shirts, this, that. What do you need us to do? And then it just collapsed into like, these are the things that, elicit passion from us, and then this is the way we do it, right? If, and part of that is the consultation process, like we add value, we know we add value. Now on our new site, like if there's a button you click, you're like, I need we actually know any questions, and it's just like, ooh, you're like, I need a consultation. The wording on that is very, very specific, so people go, I need a consultation, right? Boom, value shift. Like we put value there, and so that's part of our art set of rules. Like we want to know if we're working with you, we are adding value to what you're doing. Not because that's a must in this universe, but it's a must for us. There's commodities out there you can go with, but if you're going to work with us, this is our art set of rules, right? Why? Because we are excellent within them. And then the next step is like understanding, well, sometimes you got to stretch. Why do you got to stretch? Well, sometimes you got to pay the bills, and sometimes it helps you grow.
I don't know, but I think you guys too, if you're talking about this sort of creative outlet in a sense, it may not be exactly the same for you and your staff, but you're in a craft business, and I think there's an art element to that. You may not literally be designing the stuff, but there's a definite art to that. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, joy in creating that stuff because it is a craft. It's not just punching out widgets.
Yeah, I think I'm speaking to the client's
Yeah.
side
Oh,
of
yeah.
things strictly, but once you get past that, behind the scenes,
Yeah.
this has been.
Those guys are passionate about what they do. Yeah.
Every second in what you do, and being challenged. You want things to ship. Trust me, you want your stuff to ship.
Yeah.
And you want to be challenged. And printmaking challenges you.
Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit, but what inspired you to get into this, and what do you think potential students or students could find as for inspiration to get into, to learn more? Like you guys are saying, get your feet wet, just jump in, just do it. We mentioned videos online and other things like that. Is there anything else you would want to mention to that respect?
I teach everything I know at lettershop.com, and that's lettershop spelled with 2 P's and an E, like old school craftsman. I just think I draw all my inspiration just from real world experiences. Like Portland, Oregon is just the most beautiful town. There's art everywhere, and they put so much thought into design. And it's so nice to just have a local resource versus just looking at like a screen all day. And it's like, if we're gonna make these designs and make them real and put them on print, I want to see them in their actual natural state. But if you guys are interested in learning lettering, you can go to my website. My favorite personal hand lettering artist is Sean McCabe at seanwest.com. He has a free beginner's course for learning hand lettering. It's just, I think Skillshare is great. Skillshare is probably like my go-to. You can do 30-day free trial, or just go to Full Sail. I hear this is a good tool.
I don't know if I have much to add.
Repeat the question one more time.
Oh, now I have to remember the question. Inspiration to, get involved in this, or, anything else other than things we mentioned.
Like ancillary, like getting started. So.
Yeah.
There's great Sean McCabe stuff's really awesome. Your website, Skillshare. I have a Skillshare course, but mine's focused on business for creatives, and it really is more philosophical, like focusing on what's on the other side of the garage, and forget the Skillshare course, check it. I just pose that question to you guys. That's a question you want to ask yourself, what's on the other side of this next step, and is that real for me? Is that true for me? But at the same time, sometimes you have to do to experience that. And for our path, we started this why we're doing things that didn't elicit passion, but we just did them. We said yes to things that were stretched, and we were able to start saying yes to things where we could be more excellent. But there's a different path for everybody. If you just start out only saying yes to things you know you can do excellent, that's one path. If you just start saying yes to everything, and then defining what you can do more excellent, that's another path. But I would say when we talk about all these content experiences, I would absolutely warn you. It's so good and positive, but it's so easy to just be a spectator when you're doing that. So if you're looking at your productive hours in the day and you want to be inspired, next thing you know, you spent 5 hours just ingesting but not doing. I think you gotta flip that around. You gotta do. Very creators, gonna create, well, you gotta create, makers gonna make, gotta make.
Yeah.
But the educational part is only a slice of it, but it's very important, but you gotta do, and that's what's amazing about a place like this, is that it's actually doing and learning,
I think too, since we're also sort of talking about going from design to real world product, that sort of, it's almost like part of this is sort of about the whole pre-press sort of
Right.
experience. I think part of that is too, once you have access to a vendor, I don't know whether you've got printers that you work with now or wherever you end up working, you'll have access to these people. Pick their brains. I mean, that's how I learned. So once I sort of got into a shop and I was sort of there by myself as the art department, right out of school, I wasn't sure how to prepare things for the printer, and printers walked me through all of that. So they have tons of information on the best way to prepare files for them, and some of them will handle it different ways. So
Ask questions.
pick their
Ask
brains.
questions.
And I think too, people often sort of ask about, who sort of inspires you or whose work do you really like and all that. And it's easy to look at communication arts and print, all that, and find designers that, sort of inspire you. But the people that you work with are probably where you're going to find the most, I think, inspiration. I mean, over the years, for me, it's been these amazing people that I've actually, worked with side by side that have been most inspiring.
Yeah, that's good. Where do you see this going? This kind of hand-done thing that we're talking about today. I mean, now we know it's kind of reaching the.
It's blown up.
It's
yeah.
blown up, so it's reaching that.
Yeah.
So is it going to come back down? I mean, obviously, you guys are going to
Uh-huh.
continue doing what you're doing.
It still seems to be growing. I mean, even though I think there are places like Target that are creating products that reference the handmade stuff that isn't literally handmade, but I would really hate to see it start to be a fad. I hope it sort of sticks around.
I think it's going to stick around. Like our, technology and everything's growing, and there's it seems like all the time. I'm sure there's at least 3 of you on your phone right now. It's just so nice to just get away from it and take a break, because I don't feel like technology is going to slow down anytime soon. So, I mean, people are just going to be attracted to the handmade. Like, look at any sort of artisanal trade. Like, they're still doing it. You're still attracted to the homemade sushi chef. We were talking about sushi earlier, guys.
Yeah.
Versus going to like Walmart and buying sushi or something. Like, if it's fresh and natural and comes from a human being versus just a computer monitor, you're going to have more of a connection with it because people like other people. Not
And when
just
this whole
brands.
movement, kind of started, it felt a little bit like a backlash against the digital, thing. Everyone's just so entrenched in everything being super clean and super perfect, and digital sort of getting back to having something made by hand was really attractive.
I mean, again, what do you want to keep alive, and we're people of narrative. Narrative is of great, importance to us as humans, so there are so many things that are kept alive, and the question is like, what do you want to keep alive? And when people keep saying, I want to keep this alive, that idea will stay, the lane will stay as big as it is now, or grow, or shrink, right? Let's get even more, let's just get out of the bubble that we're talking about that is arts and maker. There are great places like the Florida Agricultural Museum, the Florida Pioneer Settlement. These are people just keeping this alive, that like day in and day out come and volunteer, work like a woodworker from the 1800s, and been doing that long before it was cool to do that. And if you look at it from that perspective of like, I'm just going to be a nerd about this, I'm going to love this, I'm going to keep this alive, that's the right way to look at it, especially when you're thinking about sustainability within it, right? Because if you look at it like a bubble, right, I think about this all the time. Well, what am I building in the face of what this is, because, we got a lot of mouths to feed now, we do, you got like 20 people under one roof, and you're looking at something that some people are like, this, and pointing at it, calling it a thing, and then doing hand gestures to make it shape like a bubble, you gotta wonder, but I don't have any concerns about sustainability for us, because I believe that there's always going to be room for someone to be at scale, and by at scale I mean being able to actually move products in a handmade way, in case there is a big brand like Jeff referenced, it's like, let's actually make something handmade, and that happens all the time, and there's room for a couple of those, and there's room for thousands and tens of thousands of 1, 2, 3 man, 4 man shops and women, to say, like, I'm going to keep this alive at this scale, Is there room for like, an Apple-sized company, times 5 doing handmade stuff? No, no, we're not marching back in time that fast, but it'll stick around as long as you want it to stick around. At what scale? That's entirely up to schools who decide, how big we're going to scale.
When you're maybe designing digital for handmade, what are some of the issues that you come across? Maybe files sent from clients or things that you have to think about when if you're designing digital and then ending up screen printing or something like that. What are the things you have to think about?
Files coming from clients, usually they send like low-res JPEGs that aren't going to work.
Resolution.
Yeah, resolution. That's a big one. I don't know.
For mine, like you touched on grammar. So you got to spell check. Like I can draw letters, I just can't spell words. Like I need another person to look at my stuff. But yeah, I think resolution is probably the biggest thing. Bleed. Don't ever forget about your bleed, guys. Unless you want your words just cropped off and then just have like a ugly margin, kind of ruins that flood of the background. But yeah, I'd say those are like the top contenders for me.
I think these are pretty universal within print as a whole.
Yeah.
If I'm speaking on behalf of just spot color in general, I'd back up a step and say just understanding in general of the processes.
It's
it's
different.
Amazing how much full color work gets thrown our way every single day. That that's sitting there like, oh man, we love this, and this on your website. We want to print this, and it's like full color, like something that we could never produce in a million years. It's just like an understanding. Like the people out there that like see this and they go, I want that, right? But they haven't gotten dirty on it. So I see quite a bit of files that come around for people just like who have great intentions but haven't dove in. And if you're gonna do anything with it, you gotta dive in first. So we could definitely use a lot more people waxing car, painting fence when it comes to understanding
Right.
the process.
Yeah, like preparing a file to go to offset print, it's not like, it doesn't seem like it's rocket science anymore. It used to be a lot more complex, but make sure you have your bleeds in, make sure file formats are consistent, make sure images are high enough resolution that they'll translate. But when it goes to the printer, they run it through pre-flight. If there's anything that's an issue, it'll get flagged. There's things that they'll adjust for. They'll adjust for dot gain on their end if that's going to be an issue. But preparing for, we talked a little bit about earlier, preparing files for screen printing or spot color, it's a totally different thing. Like I don't know about you guys, but literally manually separate. I'll create a file in Illustrator with placed images. Usually I'll set my type or whatever in Illustrator. I'll create images that are usually black and white art in Photoshop. They're 600 DPI minimum. Place them in as a bitmap TIFF, so I can make them a color. I can make them whatever color I want in Illustrator. But once I'm done designing, I then I literally manually separate each of those plates. I draw crop marks in and all that stuff. So it's a different process. I don't have to go through any of that stuff when I'm doing it, when I'm preparing a file for offset.
Not to mention like literally looking at where color 1 and color 2 interact and how you want them to interact.
Well, that's exactly that whole idea of creating traps. You have to manually create traps, which you don't have to deal with when you send a job to, even if you're doing spot color for and sending it to an offset printer, they create shrinks and spreads.
Yeah.
They create traps.
They handle it for you.
They handle it for you
Yeah.
because they know the tolerances of their own machines. You may not know, so they handle all that. When we're preparing stuff for, something we have, our press is literally a hand pull press. And we built the table ourselves. It's pretty arcane. we have to put a pretty good sized trap on the art that we're making because it's just not perfect.
And
We need a plan for all that.
And like we said before, I think there's something amazing about the imperfections
Oh,
of
absolutely.
the hand done, hand drawn, hand built stuff.
And I think the only way to really learn a lot of that stuff about how to prepare those files is to do it. Watch somebody do it, because you haven't had to even think about it before, really.
We're transitioning to a new pre-press person right now, and you're just giving me severe anxiety. Like, oh, so much to learn there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pre-press person's like, everyone's the most important person, but my God, the pre-press
Yeah.
person's important.
Yeah.
I learned so much just because I've ordered a few things from Mama Sauce about printing, just like going back and forth with the person who's in charge. Like, just talk to someone, ask questions. Like, most printers will be more than happy to help you. Obviously,
Yeah.
if they want your business, they need to help you, educate you properly, so that way the product can be as good as you want it to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah,
what we
talk to the
do,
vendors.
there is no real seamless pre-flight where you can just send it out and do it. So the burden
No.
is on us to either create content, which we do, or create conversation, which we do, to educate. A lot of what we do is inspirational, but if you go deeper, we create educational content, because that's a burden we bear. Because you're teaching design for spot color?
No.
See, there is no class. For it.
Yeah.
There isn't.
I would love to say yes, but
Yeah, me too.
Well, and right down to we work with a lot of we have a lot of interns, and they print their own projects. And when they finally get around to preparing a file to print, I walk them through the process. Here's how we do it. Here's how we create a spread. Here's how you build a file. And I'll tell them I need a 600 DPI bitmap TIFF. That's what I need to order film. And I bet more than half the time the file you get back is wrong. I mean, it's.
But, they mean like,
But I have to walk them back through it.
Yeah.
Just
Here-
hyperlink it in
yeah,
the email and send it
here's-
to an
yeah.
article.
600
Actually, we have
DPI
a
bitmap TIFF.
website for that. You just want to start sending
Yeah,
it.
so
Yeah.
there you go. But it's a learning process. You got to go walk them back through. It's like, oh, that's what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, what's bitmap?
Yeah, bitmap TIFF.
right.
It's decisions, it's repetition. Before you know it, you don't see code anymore. But until then, you're like, you gotta just keep doing it. But
Yeah.
when you say, oh, 600 DPI did that tip, I was like, I know every step in
Yeah.
Photoshop that's gonna get me there, and I know it's every single layer.
Yeah.
But you tell it to someone else
Yeah.
done it before.
Exactly.
It's a new language. You're learning a new language.
Yeah.
They're just gonna Google it and be like, what did that guy just mean?
Yeah, but if it's a 3-color file, they might send you like that flattened in all 3 colors. Like, wait, no.
Yeah. Yeah, even though you've kind of walked through the fact you have to manually separate it, because it is a whole new process. People aren't prepared to prepare files, and this kind of an arcane process. It is. It's
So
old.
it goes in life,
Yeah.
so it goes in life, and
Yeah.
you are not an expert in anything until you're like, I know about code. You just want all of a sudden you just don't see code anymore. It happens. You just don't. It takes a long time of doing this before you don't see code.
And somehow, I don't know about for you, but screen printing still never gets easy.
What's that?
Screen printing still never gets easy.
No.
Now that we kind of know what we're doing, it's still a pain in the ass at times.
Even when you just did your thing, I was like, hold on, so that means this. Okay.
Yeah.
The amount of work that we pull off a press, take a screen down, maybe reshoot, reshoot a screen,
Happens a lot.
retract, it happens all the time.
Yep.
Because, there's certain situations you run into, and that's our burden to bear, we may not have gotten it right, but pull it down and start over.
Yep.
Questions? I think at this time we have a few minutes for questions from our audience. If you have a question for our panelists, please raise your hand. A microphone will be brought to you. For those of you joining online, please direct your questions to the online moderator, who will try to accommodate any questions you have. Remember, try to keep them brief and to one question. Do we have any questions?
My name is John Baker. I had a question about the business side of it. I have a hard time feeling that being a full-time creative. I like to do and do things, but how did you guys transition to making it a business and not just something you love to do?
You have to think smart about it. fully believe in the overlap technique. Like, don't just go for your passion. Like, have a day job, work on the side, moonlight, freelance, whatever you gotta do. Just keep your passion alive and work slowly. Like, have a long game mindset. Don't just be like, how can I make money this quarter or this month? But like, how can I be able to quit my job, have my own design studio, or whatever your goal is 5 years down the road, 10 years from the road. And don't just like compromise your values and be more picky about the clients you want to take on, and just be really like, this is, because keep in mind, like, the portfolio and everything that you work on, like, you're attracting a specific audience. So if you're just taking everybody, then you're just going to get weird clients. But like me, I niche down on hand lettering, and guess what? People want to contact me for hand lettering. I want to get hand lettering clients. I'm going to blog about hand lettering. It's all about promotion and just being able to know what you want. Now, if you go into Google, and I dare you, type hand lettering, second result on the first page. So it's just, you have to be all about it and really just talk about it, show it, work it, go on Instagram, post it, and get to the point where like, clients are coming to you versus you cold calling or cold emailing.
On a fundamental level, you have to understand that, you know, business operates, you make money on volume, efficiency, right? And volume, efficiency, and pricing, right? There's three fundamentals there. On the other side, supporting that, you have three basic pillars that your business stands on: development, delivery, and operations. Are you developing business, marketing, social, business, delivering, making the product, operations, supporting all that, logistics. If you're talking about tackling all that as an independent single person, you have to be smart about understanding what makes the most sense for you to be able to field those three pillars, right? While trying to create efficiencies, it's, you have to really look at the way the businesses are really structured and built, and recognize where your weaknesses are. And I'd say, if you're like, I am great at business development, I have an awesome, strong Instagram, that gives me all the business I need, I'm great at delivery, I'm awesome at designing, I'm not getting back to people on emails, I'm not project managing. Sounds like development and delivery real strong with you, operations real weak. Look for your weaknesses, and then you got to fill them in, whether that's with tools and online platforms or a person. That's where you begin, right? Most people in the creative realm, if you're creative and extrovert, you're probably great at development and delivery. If you're creative and an introvert, you're probably great at delivery and operations. You're gonna have a weakness.
Other questions? I saw a couple hands up. Had to go the long way around.
I was like, where'd she go?
Hello. Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Hey.
Good. I just want to have your information, if that's okay. Your company information, websites that you were talking about. Just to write it down.
From each of us, or?
Yeah.
We
for
could
you
probably do
guys.
that afterwards.
I actually I'm here in Full Sail because I'm working my own brand, clothing line. So I gotta go with the print this. So I heard that he has like a business talking website and the lettering. I just want to make sure to write it down for when I go out. If that's okay.
You wanna grab us after, and we'll get you all our info.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I mean, as a quickie, it's for me. It's just lettershop.com. Every handle is lettershop. So, LETTERSHO_PE. If you wanna just check me out on all the stuff.
Is it beneficial to work with like both traditional like hand done stuff and digital combined together in the same project sometimes?
It just depends on what's appropriate for the project and what you kind of what you want to create. I mean, we've done some projects that combine a little bit of both, but it's kind of your call, and if it's appropriate for the job.
It just becomes more of a challenge at that point, in logistics and figuring things out, operations. I know, like your business cards were one part offset, one part letter pressing.
Yep.
Then you have to balance what's the capabilities on this machine, figure out a new approach. The more you can stay in a lane and systemize, the more efficient you can be. That's a good thing. But then sometimes it's worth it to stretch.
Yeah.
You have to deem the benefit for yourself.
Like Like they each have their own purpose, and I think one feeds perfectly into the other. Like I personally, I think it's a perfect marriage, 50-50 for me. It's like, oh, it's always hand drawn, and then it goes back into Illustrator and Photoshop, and then when I print things, it's always usually like someone actually pulling the screen, so it just kind of ties back around.
Well, I think the hand process and what you would call it, digital or offset, whatever, has always been sort of combined when there's additional finishing of a project. You might print a job, 5 or 6, 7 colors. You print 4-color process, a couple of spot colors. It's all done offset. Then you might send it off to have it, foil stamped and die cut. That's usually done on an old, Heidelberg, an old, letterpress. So those things do get combined a lot.
Any other questions?
Actually, we do have a question from an online student.
Sure.
And it's specifically to Dina. Dina, how long did it take you to find your niche, and how did you find it?
Experimentation. When I graduated from Full Sail with an awesome bachelor's in digital arts and design, I bounced from like agency to studio, and it wasn't feeling connected to the work that I was doing. I felt kind of like lazy, just sitting in front of a computer all day. And I, originally, to my roots was always drawing. Like my parents, which are also in the audience, I grew up with a pencil in my hands. It was just refreshing to get back into it. And then, again, I'm going to say his name so many times, Sean McCabe, SeanWest.com, guys. And he really inspired me. He worked on a friend's book of mine, 3 Pipe Pop Problems, and something resonated with me, and I just started going for it and practicing. And I, still had a day job and was doing graphic design, web design, print design, pretty much a little bit of everything. And then eventually I was starting to become popular, and then if you put yourself out there and you're on social media, people will tell you, like, hey, can you make a print of this? Like, hey, can I hire you for a job? It's just gonna happen. Like, people are gonna feel attracted towards you. And then, like I said, I was able to quit my job and now I do it full time. It's just, you have to not be concerned about, you can't be afraid to try things. Like, just do it, and if you fail, that's great. Like, you tried, and just try the next thing, and just keep on going until it just resonates and it feels right. And that's pretty much the best advice I could really give anyone.
Question?
Hi, I'm Carly,
Carly?
and I just wanted to know, I personally don't feel this way, but what do you say to people when they tell you that print is a dying art?
Well, obviously it's not.
Well, I know this much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I pay rent.
Yeah, there was that Print is Dead book by, can't remember his name now. Awesome designer. It's shifting. I mean, it's changing. I mean, we're probably not producing maybe we're not producing as much print as we used to, but it's still around. People spend more time with a printed piece, I think, than they do, the same thing, in the digital realm. I don't know. I don't see it dying anytime soon.
I mean, just look at the comparison of like an ebook to like a freshly printed book. Like a book is something you display in your house, where an ebook probably goes in a folder with all your other ebooks that you may or may not read. Like, I think that tangible quality just makes you connect with it, like literally and emotionally, a little bit easier versus something that's just on a digital flat screen.
I mean, I think the wording is so loaded in that, and I don't know. I would challenge just the way it's phrased. Let's say humans reach 10, 12 billion people in the coming years, and then it's unsustainably large, or the world just is like too many people, and when we come back down to a more sustainable number, then it stays there. I wouldn't say the humans are dying. I would say okay, it found homeostasis. And that's a moving target. And what is homeostasis? And especially when it's contingent on society and culture and commerce, which print largely is connected to now, whereas in its initial beginnings it was real kind of basic communication, and then became broad communication. But now it's just going to find its homeostasis. That's what I think it's doing. It's going to find well. Find your place in this world as a printer, and you'll have a place in this world as a printer.
Yeah.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah, print's not dead.
Print's not dead.
Print's not dead. What's actually what's really kind of interesting is it seems like the handmade printing has come back. I mean, there's probably you probably know a lot of letterpress shops that have probably had to close their doors over the years, had to get rid of a lot of equipment. But it's coming back because of people like Nick who want to keep doing it.
People like you that want
Yeah.
to, people like Dina that want to keep producing things on these presses. You
Yeah.
know, this is, it's a reality that the industry is shrinking. You know, it's a reality, but like it's just fine. Like I said, it's just finding its place.
Yep.
If we all read the headlines and jumped ship, and like Zika's coming, you know, like leave Florida now, you know. Okay, Florida's dead, you know, but no, Florida's not dying. You know, it's like it's just such, you know, it's just these are illicit, strong reactions. But again, I don't challenge the reality that it is a diminishing market, but that's very exciting for me, you know, as someone that like just seeks to make really beautiful things in the media and print with really great designers. That's just less clutter we have to get through. But even if print was growing with more commodity clutter, more gang running is actually getting bigger, that's just as exciting to me because that's more garbage in the universe that we just get to juxtapose against. You know, it's it's either or. It doesn't matter. It is what it is when you just do what you do. And trust me, like people will always need to print. Like even if society collapses, you know, like printing is just a basic form of communication that we will always need practically and artistically.
Guys, really quick, we still have a few more minutes of Q&A. Both Rachel and I are here with mics, so if you are interested in asking a question, just flag one of us and we'll come over with the mic to you, okay?
My question is for Jeff.
Yep.
It's been a while since I've seen you.
How you doing?
Do you have any experience with responsive design? And that's, basically making a file for both digital and then print. I hear there's a lot of scuttlebutt about which way to go and how that some of the software is actually designed to go one way. If you do have any experience.
I really don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not faced that one yet. We've been designing stuff either specifically for print or specifically for web.
That's probably more of a publishing issue.
Yeah, I was like trying
Yeah.
to think of even like a situation where you would need both.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
My name's Adam Feinglass. I'm actually a film student here. And coming from the world of photography, how can I optimize my media for printing as opposed to just going to like Costco and say getting something printed out on photo paper?
What are your ambitions with the prints that you're going to produce?
Something like a full-size poster or something to make it to a T-shirt, something to essentially to make it shipped.
Yeah, I mean those are two different tracks, you know, like a full-size art print poster versus a T-shirt are two different things. You can handle a line screen on a screen print with process printing, screen print, or simulated process, and you can recreate photography, you know, in screen print and letterpress. We've been talking about it largely on the opposite side of that, but there are processes, especially in the T-shirt world, where you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then large format printing is just another track entirely. Those are the kind of machines that kind of like RGB sometimes, things like that. I would just start researching simulated process and floor color process screen printing for the T-shirt side, and I would research specifically Giclée, Glicee, if I'm not mistaken, which would be I think it's like French for water on paper. It's like a fancy inkjet, and research that. But those kind of things like a Giclée printer, like the kind that we have, can print pretty optimally at 150 dpi. But not saying that you're not going to get better quality by producing raw images and putting them through. But to optimize your process for Giclée is a little more straightforward because you can work with an art reproduction house do you really want to do limited edition, large format art prints of what you do, right? You can go and you can try to go the film route, which, you know, there are gonna be some people who could blow it up, film, you know, certainly in LA. But if you want to go the more straightforward and here in town, this like there's some great art printers that do art reproduction if you want to look at that. If you go to their processes and do your I would get serious about going through the soft proofing process so you can actually, you know, be in a room and see what it's gonna look like. And this depends all how anal you want to be about how it's gonna come out. But those are the two things I would research on that front. And then understanding if you want like to replicate your art on a t-shirt really well, that there are varying degrees. If you're going to an art reproduction house or clay printing, the degrees at which they vary is gonna be much shorter than much smaller than like, you know, t-shirt shop, which starts from like, yard signs on the side of the road being like 100 shirts for, you know, $100, all the way up to people who really know what they're doing to make art on t-shirts. So they're both at limited spectrums.
Yeah. I think it really depends on your goals, like how much money you want it, like if you're selling these, if you're just gonna give them away for free, what kind of quality you're looking for. Like if you want to go the cheaper route, you could always just do, like people do the Redbubble Society 6 thing for prints. I know theprintful.com is really great if you want to be able to host and sell your own posters on your own website and they distribute and ship it for you. Or if you want to be a little bit more limited edition, just keep in mind with whatever you choose, like you can't obviously charge that much for a poster if it only costs you like $1 to print versus if you were to get it screen printed or what you suggested, you can obviously charge more for it, and then whether or not you want to get 100 at the same time or if you can even afford that at the time. Just like start, experiment, educate yourself, I think is really the best thing you can do, and just pro and con it.
Yeah, how much control do you want to have over it? The first question you ask, you know, like, you know, what kind of art are you making? You know, kind of lead to the backs of the different suppliers.
I think you covered it.
Oh, sweet.
We have another question from an online student named Maria who's in the graphic design program, and she wants to know whether there are any books or other resources that you all would recommend regarding print and physical media.
Print magazine?
There's a. Do you remember there was a book called Pocket Guide or something?
Pocket Pal.
Pocket
Pal.
Yeah.
Pocket Pal.
Yeah. That has a lot of just really great, just straightforward information about the printing process.
Yeah.
Lots of good reference in that.
Yeah, my library of print is pretty much made up of like 1940s and 1950s printmaking books. But that's pertinent to, you know, what we do. There's a book called General Printing that you can get online. It's, you know, not being reproduced anymore, but you can buy these editions of it. And if you're interested in letterpress printing or taglio or anything on that side, that's a really good, you know, place to start. There's also, I don't know if you're looking to like make products, but there's also a book called Screen Printing for Fun and Profit. That like it's like a DIY start, like, you know, here's how you know everything you need to know about how to screen print for fun, and then how you make money on it too. It's a really actually good book to start with if you're interested in industry.
I probably should have read that.
Yeah.
I know, I'm like, where's my piece of paper and my notes for this?
So those two, letterpress general printing, and then screen printing for fun and profit.
Any other questions?
I would also suggest mamas-sauce.com/designwise, where you can go to Mama's Sauce. There's a button called Designwise, which is just educational content for designers interested in learning about spot print.
It's a really good resource. I just read it like 3 days ago. It's really good.
No more questions? All right, so I want to thank you guys for attending our session today. We especially want to thank Jeff, Dina, and Nick for their knowledge and valuable information. Have a great day, guys.